Bismillah wa salatu wa salamu ala Rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'een. Thumma ma ba'd. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Everybody again. Parts 3 and 4 are what we have left. Again, the purpose of this lecture talk tonight, this live cast tonight, is some of the things I think make Surah Al-Kahf awesome. And one of the things I think just make it absolutely stellar and incredible is the way that it's organized. And though I will not give you a complete discussion on how it's organized, I want to give you some glimpses so you get some appreciation of how wonderfully and how beautifully the tapestry of the Quran works. How the ayat are weaved one into the other, and how they flow together, and how there are things that when you just read a translation, or even if you read a tafsir ayah by ayah without actually connecting the dots, you just miss out on so much awesome stuff. So that's what we're going to talk about in parts 3 and both parts 3 and part 4, inshallah. Two different dimensions of nadhm. Nadhm actually means coherence and how things are organized together. Okay. Now, the first example I want to give you guys is the 10th, 11th, 12th, and 13th ayah of Surah Al-Kahf. Okay. So the 10th ayah, which was the last ayah from the Prophet's advice, yeah? The last ayah was إِذْ أَوَى الْفِتْيَةُ إِلَى الْكَهْفِ. This is, by the way, the first ayah about the story itself. Now the story is beginning. Just so you guys have the numbers down, the first mention of the young men is ayah number 9. And it goes on to ayah number 26. Okay, so 9 to 26 in the surah is when you have the story. That's where it's taking place. But the 9th ayah is just, did you think they were such a grand deal? It was a rhetorical question. It's not really telling us anything about them. Technically, the story itself begins in the 10th ayah. Okay, the story itself begins in the 10th ayah. So I'm going to give you a gist of what happens. In the 10th ayah, Allah says, إِذْ أَوَى الْفِتْيَةُ إِلَى الْكَهْفِ فَقَالُوا رَبَّنَا آتِنَا مِن لَدُنْكَ رَحْمَةً وَهَيِّئْ لَنَا مِنْ أَمْرِنَا رَشَدًا. Remember the two du'as converging? So basically they pray for refuge. Basically. They're turning into refuge to Allah and they're asking for His rahmah and for their matter to be resolved for them. Right? That's the gist of the 10th ayah. In the 11th ayah, Allah says, فَضَرَبْنَا عَلَىٰ آذَانِهِمْ فِي الْكَهْفِ سِنِينَ عَدَدًا. Allah put them to sleep, basically. He patted on their ears and they got knocked out to sleep. That's the 11th ayah. The 12th ayah, ثُمَّ بَعَثْنَاهُمْ لِنَعْلَمَ أَيُّ الْحِزْبَيْنِ أَحْصَى لِمَا لَبِثُوا أَمَدًا. Then we raised them. We woke them up to see which one of them would have better count. So now, 10th ayah, they pray, they make dua. 11th ayah, Allah puts them to sleep. 12th ayah, Allah wakes them up. And the 13th ayah, نَحْنُ نَقُصُّ عَلَيْكَ نَبَأَهُمْ بِالْحَقِّ إِنَّهُمْ فِتْيَةٌ آمَنُوا بِرَبِّهِمْ وَزِدْنَاهُمْ هُدًى. The 13th ayah is, we're going to tell you the story. Remember, bilhaq means 3 things? Who can remember 3 things? Huh? Purposefully, accurately, and rightfully. We'll focus on purposefully for a few moments, okay? So we're going to say Allah will tell the story with purpose. In other words, it's not just a story for the sake of a story, it's got an agenda. Okay? Now, what's cool about this is between ayahs number 10, 11, 12, and 13, you have a summary of the entire story. Everything in a gist that you need to know about the story is done. They ran away, they went to sleep, they woke up, yes, there's a purpose. Done. It's a bullet point version of the whole thing. Before you enter the story, in detail, it's already done actually. Technically, it's already over. Now, check out what happens. Ayah number 10 was about what? Who remembers? Their prayer. When you go to ayah number 14 to 16. Now why ayah number 14? Because I already described to you what happens in 10, 11, 12 and 13. So what's next? 14. So when you go to ayah number 14 to 16, you know what you learn? You learn why did they make this dua anyway? What did they do that they needed to get refuge? How did they get themselves in trouble? All the background you need that leads to that dua will come in ayah number 14 to 16. So the first detailed section is a tafsir, is an explanation of ayah number 10. In ayahs number 17 and 18, by the way, who remembers what ayah number 11 was about? He put them to sleep. He put them to sleep. What was happening while they were asleep? The sun, remember the ayat about the sun moving around, right? Their dog with its paws stretched out, somebody coming and running away from them, and Allah turning them this way and that way. All of that is happening while they are asleep. In other words, Allah says Allah put them to sleep, and in ayahs number 17 and 18, how did that sleep look? Let me explain that sleep to you. Then you go to ayah number 12. You remind me, what was ayah number 12 about? Huh? He woke them up. Now, okay, so what happened when they woke up? Well, they woke up, they said, how long were we sleeping? Let's go get some food. That entire conversation is ayahs number 19 to 21. In other words, now Allah is explaining ayah number 12. And finally, people started saying, they must have been 3 and the 4th one was the dog. 5 and the 6th one was the dog. 7 and the 8th one was the dog. Other people said, let's build a masjid here over them. Let's build a monument here over them. Other people said, how long did they live here? Was it 300 years? In other words, people started getting sidetracked with, why was this story told? Was this story told so you can count years? Was this story told so you can know how many there were? Was this story told for any, what kind of building you should build over them? People lost sight of the purpose. And Allah says in the 13th ayah, I'm going to tell you the story with purpose, and let me tell you how they forgot the purpose. So from ayahs number 22 to 26 are all consistent examples of how they lost purpose and how you need to bring it back to purpose. Now that to me is absolutely insanely awesome. 10, 11, 12, 13. I put them in 4 colors here for a reason. 10, 11, 12, 13. And then the detail sections, 14 to 16 goes back to 10. 17 to 18 goes back to 11. 19 to 21 goes back to 12. Then 22 to 26 goes back to 13. And this is just speech. There's no writing. I can't even organize like that when I write. And so we just recite these ayat. So some people who memorize these surahs, وَكَذَلِكَ بَعَثْنَاهُمْ وَكَذَلِكَ أَعْثَرْنَا عَلَيْهِمْ. They get confused between those two. Was it بَعَثْنَاهُمْ or أَعْثَرْنَا عَلَيْهِمْ? If you know this organization, this layout, oh wait, no, the description of what happened when they woke up came first, so بَعَثْنَاهُمْ first. A later section when they got them discovered, and then this whole pointless debate about what they should build over them, that's later. أَعْثَرْنَا عَلَيْهِمْ is later. When you study Nazm, your hifz get easier. Your mistakes and hifz start going away because of this. So that's the first quick example I wanted to give you of how incredibly well the stories of the Quran are organized, and in particular this one. And this is just one example of the layout inside of this surah.